And we are live. You know, we don't own the rights to this music, but we're going to fight the power today, people. Fight the power that be. Yeah, and we having some internet difficulties. We used to get on people about that. I did pay the bill, but we're in the same location today. We're gonna do some talking today. We're on Vulnerable Voices Season 3. You remember, we don't own the rights to this music or any other music you might hear.
But we do like it. We do like it. I haven't heard that in a long time, Paul.
Fight the power?
That was like back in the day.
I had to take you back.
You did. Look at you.
Do the right thing, sister.
That was it. Great movie. Kudos to you for that musical selection today. I think it.
Oh, she doesn't normally like my musical selection.
I do not. For improvement, we'll deal with Fight the Power today. Welcome to another episode of Vulnerable Voices. We are coming to you live on location in a spot that we really can't say where we are, can we, Paul? But we're together and we're doing this live just for you. Listen, today we're going to talk about something very, very important to us all: social justice. We are fighting the power and getting insight from two gurus in the field. We want to learn something today. But before we get started, I want to come to you with a thought that's on my mind. Your why. It's been asked, or, within the last few years, it's been a hot, taboo even topic of what is your why? And my conversation with Paul today, we've been spending the whole day together, doing some work together, and we reflected on our why. And I think the most important thing that we all can do is remember what you were called to do and why you were called to do it. When we forget about why we do what we do.
Ooh. I think we lost our host, y'all. I'm going to try to man it or whatever while we get Dr. Paul Miller and Dr. EJ back on. They're going to log on very soon. I think they lost some internet connection. So, Marcus. Okay, there they go. Hey, we was trying to wing it for y'all. You know what I
mean? We appreciate that.
So first of all, let's clarify here. So we've never been in the same spot for the show, right?
Ever.
So we said we're going to try this. We're in the same location today. We were doing some work, and we were driving. We weren't going to make it back to where we had to go. So we said we pulled over on the side of the road and went
and we have no idea where we are.
We're at somebody's random hotel and acted like we were guests here. And so we pulled up by the pool. We pulled up by the pool. Yeah, we pulled up by the pool, and we're doing the show, but we're using hotspots today. And so if it's a little janky, y'all might have to cover some airtime for us, But we want to let the people know what's going on. That we're doing our best here to get it going. All right, go ahead.
We're trying real hard. So that's it. Listen. I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to the experts. We want you fellows to introduce yourselves today. We have Minister Dominique Alexander and the one and only Marcus A. Hughes joining us this evening. And so I'll pass the mic to these guys and let them explain who they are, what they do, and why they decided to be part of our podcast, Vulnerable Voices, this evening. Minister Dominique, let's go. We'll start with you.
Awesome. It's good to see everyone. I'm Minister Dominique Alexander, president and founder of the Next Generation Action Network, based here in Dallas, Texas. Have the pleasure of working with Dr. Miller and Marcus A. Hughes. And of course, our organization focused primarily on social injustice, work through community, civil and human rights issues across this country. In our organization, We have an Excel program, which is our education arm, a legal advocacy fund, which is our legal arm, and of course, we have several chapters throughout the country. And we're doing a lot of great work, and I'm excited about being on this live stream today to share with you guys what currently is going on in the world of social injustice, because we live in some very unparalleled times. Right now, we're voting and criminal justice reform, and so many of these different issues, and hate is so prevalent in America right now.
Marcus, tell us who you are.
All
Will
right.
Smith, everybody. It's Will Smith.
Turn up.
Yo, so my name is Marcus Hughes. I am here in Washington, D.C. I'm the president of Next Generation Action Network here in Washington, D.C. Dominique is a good friend of mine, as well as he just stated, he's our national president. And I'm also a good friend to Paul Miller. Even though I got a funny story about how we first met, where he shut a door in my face, but he opened that door and we kept the conversations going. Just piggybacking off of what was already said, we are living in some very interesting times. It's nothing that most of our ancestors have never seen before, but it's something that a lot of us are experiencing on our own and having to kind of feel our way through. I'm on here today. Anytime Dr. Miller asked me to come on to lend my voice, I always want to support my brother, so I'm here to support him. And I'm looking forward to the conversation. He says that we're going to be a little bit vulnerable. That's a word I'm still working on. So I'm going to try to turn up and have fun with you all today.
Thank you. We appreciate y'all for coming on. And we just respect what y'all do, and we're hoping for a good dialogue today. You know, I think, you know, just knowing y'all brothers, I'll start out with the first question. And there's some bugs flying around us. I think a bug just flew on Erica's device. Like, I get nervous. I don't know about.
We lost him again.
We lost him again, y'all. We gonna win this.
Got him.
We are going to man this show while they deal with the technical difficulties, y'all.
All right. We're gonna wing it. Let's wing it.
I wish they would have gave us the questions so that we can kind of go on. Awesome. We got y'all back. We holding it every time. Hey, every time we come up with a subject. So it's real.
This is crazy. And you know what's crazy is I've been making jokes about people's internet all season, and now, you know, my hotspot. That's what you get with that T-Mobile. I think I need to upgrade to a stronger hotspot. I need
you gotta give AT&T or something, man. You got to, man.
That's it.
That Metro ain't gonna work.
I think we're about to lose him.
So, you know, we're gonna switch devices here and see if we can get some.
You want some of this AT&T over there?
Let me get some of the AT&T right here.
Yeah, it's much clearer over there. It's much clearer over there, Dr. Miller.
Let's see if I do this.
Oh, it turn up. Y'all got it.
Better. All right.
Much better.
That's the difference between MacBooks and that other stuff.
No, I won't agree. No, they charge for the calculator. You almost had me.
Yeah.
You had me, team Samsung. You know, team.
Hey, I got a Samsung phone, but I got my MacBook in front of me, so I'm good either way.
So, all right. So we're back here. We're going to hopefully not have any more interruptions.
Mm-hmm.
But the important question that I have for your brothers is, I really want to understand some of the struggles that you guys have been through as being part of this fight. So, like Dominique,
You muted.
You're muted.
You're muted. You're muted. There you go. There you go. You said my name and I didn't hear the rest of the end.
Erica touching stuff, messing with stuff. You could dress her up, but can't take her.
Blame it on her.
It's coming. Come on, it's coming.
You gonna blame it on her?
All right, so listen. So I want people to understand the struggles that you've been through as a social activist, and just kind of starting people there, because I know some of the times that you've had to arrest and some other things. Talk about it. What is a social activist? And talk about some of your struggles that you've been through. And then Marcus, the same thing.
I think one of the things that you, when you sign yourself up to activism, yet in America, you don't sign yourself up to a popularity contest, right? The reality is that we live in this box that Dr. King and all of the greats who did it before us, work was glorified. No, I actually live in the city, Dallas, Texas, one of two cities that Dr. King was actually rejected from by Black elder leadership, right? So that kind of tell y'all what I deal with in a daily basis, right? Because these people ain't wanted in Dr. King, and they don't want it now. The reality is that, of course, like I said, this is not a popularity contest, and we come to address a issue that is not nothing new under the sun. I think Marcus always tell us about grandma's story. You know, ain't nothing new under the sun. This ain't nothing new. It's just exacerbated because we live in a society where people think that Donald Trump just was created overnight, right? Or this type of hate that we saw on January 6th was just created out of Donald Trump. Donald Trump didn't create that. When we sat back and stayed silent, created that for over decades of years, not addressing the root cause of racism and bigotry. People saying stuff, we don't live in a racist America. No, yeah, we do. Yes, we do. But the reality is that I knew with being an activist, and especially with addressing and following the footsteps of all of the greats, from Fannie Lou Hamer, from so many different individuals, that comes with sacrifice, right? There was a lot of sacrifice for these people who we stand on the foundation of right now. They did. And yet at the end of the day, I don't think that I'm exempt from that. So I'm so grateful to God that God has been yet faithful to me. I'm continuing to enlarge my territory. And as long as he continue to do that, I will continue to fight for his people and continue to do the work that we need to do. But yet at the end of the day, this ain't no popularity contest. This is some real issues, and the Next Generation Action Network, along with its members and the whole entire thing, y'all know we do it like no other. But we ain't asking for nobody's permission, you know. I think one of the good quotes I had years ago, it said, "I would never ask the oppressor for permission to liberate my people." And yet at the end of the day, that's what I tell to every activist and organizer or person who want to organize, may have the wish or the will to do it, but don't want to do it. At the end of the day, you can't ask for permission to stand out here in this gap.
Marcus, what about you? What is an activist?
Oh, that's a loaded question. What is an activist? An activist is any individual that have the will to step out and do something to, you know, create a better space for the other people, right? Activists sometimes are counselors. We are motivators. We are the fire starters. We are the community changers. We are the individuals that have stepped up and pretty much put our hands on the torch that has been carried for so long, and are doing everything that we can do in order to make sure that it just goes a little bit further. We are the individuals that hurt, right? Because we see and feel everything that is going on around us. And we are the ones that try to channel that into an avenue in which we can be able to bring some type of a resolve to that hurt for the community and for the people that we love. We're out here continuing to do the work that is necessary to do. Doc, I call him Doc. Dominique has mentioned some of our great leaders, Dr. King. We had, just name them, all of those who have laid down their lives for us. And our job as today's activists is to continue on their legacy. to add our voice to the mix, because sometimes we as millennials or young leaders, our voices get lost. We're constantly fighting in order to make sure that what it is that we are needing is out there in the forefront as well. So we are a mixture of many things, but I think the biggest thing that we're servants. We are servants to the people, and we are here to continue to do the work in the will of the people, and we're going to continue to rock with the people.
What has been your greatest challenge in this work? What have you found that has really been that roadblock or that obstacle that seems to consistently or has had the greatest impact on this journey for you?
I'd say for me, this field is ever changing, right? There are so many things that are going on, so many people that are out doing the work. Sometimes you get lost in the sauce and you have to regroup. The challenge also is learning the balance, because we are always wanting to take on everything, but there's only so much that we can do as one individual. So making sure that we are doing what we can do while maintaining our own self-care, keeping a close relationship with the families, while also being there to service the people that are in need as well. So I think that has been my biggest challenge. I think that over the years, I have been able to cope and learn ways to be able to practice all those things that I've mentioned, as well as keep the energy up, keep the fire up, and stand on that front line.
What's the biggest case that either one of you have been involved in, and what role has either one of you or the organization played? Talk to people about that, because I think there's a lot of times people see the larger cases on TV, and then there's a lot of other cases that happen every day that they don't get to see. So let's start with the biggest ones, and then let's talk about the ones that people don't see. Yeah, got something for me?
One of the things I always try to not to get into those big or small, because of course we'll pull out for the small, the ones that ain't. And a lot of times, I tell people all the time, I don't get into the big and small conversations, because at the end of the day, us as organizations and activists, we get a case before it goes viral, right? I knew about Ahmaud Arbery before everybody knew about that video. You know what I'm saying? Like I was one of the first few to see the video prior to it going viral, right? So it's kind of like with a reality to me, it's no big or small case, because we come to it before it even blows up, right? The McKinney pool party situation, when the young lady was slammed on the ground, we got that when it was only 2 people who saw it, right? And just like with Botham Jean, we got the case when many people didn't know who was killed in his own home, or a Tatiana Jefferson. But all of those cases we were critically involved in, whether that was helping directly to relieve the family, or in the advocacy part of it, or even the legislative part of those issues. But those are some of the cases, just to say a few, that we have been a part of. I know just recently here in the city of Dallas, we unveiled the street renaming of Botham Jean Boulevard, right on the same street that our police headquarters are. So now when our police officers they check, it gotta say 1400 Botham Jean Boulevard. At the end of the day,
tell who is Botham Jean for the people who may not know. And explain what that is. Who he was.
So Botham Jean was an accountant, accomplished young man who was from the country of St. Lucia. He was killed back in 2019 by Amber Geiger, 2018 by Officer Amber Geiger in his own home. Amber Geiger claimed that she thought it was her home. which we knew that was very inconsistent. There was a lot of corruption that went on in this case, meaning by turning off cameras, removing her from vehicle. About a year and a half ago, a jury in Dallas County found her guilty of killing Botham Jean and sentenced her to 10 years in prison. That also has propelled us to create a legislation called the Bowles Law, that's currently that was proposed in the state legislature, and currently waiting to be signed by the governor right now.
Right. So with those cases and with that type of case, what are the steps that you guys take when you like, all right, so you get the video, like what's step one, what's step two, like for somebody that might want to be an activist and somebody who might want to help and get involved, and they might not be ready yet to do it at the level that NGAN is doing it, but what's the different steps? What does that look like?
Well, the main thing, you got to get your messaging right? You got to be able to know what the facts are, right? What are the lining points? Because at the end of the day, we know the narrative of what the police is going to do. It's the same narrative. Oh, he's a thug. He's a this. He had weed. Oh, he might had a traffic violation 3 years ago, 7 years ago. He might had a, aggravated assault on his record for 10 years ago. It's the same scenario, right? Like as if something that someone done in their past give them justification of killing them right then and there. And like most of the time I always tell them, I don't care what he done 3 days ago. I'm talking about that day, right? And the reality is that the most you have to be able to put something up to be able to make sure that you can fight against all of those narratives that they're going to push out. And that's how we do it, from a social media campaign to our media campaign, even fighting the media's narrative, because all the time, officer prematurely is a victim before facts start to come out, and then they say, oh, the victim, right? So, but the officer is automatically the victim, right? And the reality is that you as an organizer sometimes have the power in your hand on whether this loved one, this family is going to have their loved one looked up to, or the actual meaning of who they are is going to be portrayed. A lot of times, if you fail as an activist, sometimes you're holding this person's legacy in your hand. You know what I mean? So you have to control that narrative. You know what I mean? I tell you about a case, Christian Taylor. Christian Taylor was a young man who was drugged and literally broke into a car dealership. And of course, you saw this college student literally put his body through a car. You can tell by anybody with natural sense that something was going on with this college student, right? But this person was killed. He was killed by an officer who was not supposed to engage him, but allow Christian Taylor to surrender. But most people would look at a case like that and say, oh, he was breaking into a facility, he was doing this and this, that, and the third. And the reality is that what we're saying is the police is not hired to be judge, jury, and yet executioner, right? That young man should have had lived and be able to later on be able to go whatever avenues he had to go to clear his name or put in whatever treatment so that he didn't go back in that path. But at the end of the day, we had to bury Christian Taylor. But the unique ability of us as an activist, we had to tell the narrative of who Christian Taylor was, the young man that came from a well-ran Black home where there was a mother and a father there, where 3 children went to college and 2 of them already graduated. He was there. We had to tell that story because guess what? All they would have thought was on Fox and NBC was that Christian Taylor was a hooligan. You know what I'm saying? Hooligan or some child that didn't have a good upbringing. and we had to fight against those narratives. So that's why I say, as activists, sometimes we have someone's legacy, we have a family in our hands, and whether this narrative is going to be pushed the right way or it's going to be pushed in a negative way.
Marcus, what made you decide to become an activist? Why did y'all do this? Why are you doing this? Yes, I understand you want to help people. You want to help people of color. You want to help people that look like you. But was there some moment in your life that said, you know what? This is my calling. This is my why. This is why I do what I do.
They used to stuff Marcus in lockers when he was in high school. That's why
you know the truth.
That's why he involved now. Like
So-
Saved by the Bell.
No, I've never been stuck in a locker. I will say that if you was to ask my mother that question growing up, I was always that child that never let anything just sit or rest. I always ask questions. I always press buttons, right? I've always wanted to be that individual that can bring some type of a solution to every problem. And I'm that person that it bothers me. Everything bothers me. And because it bothers me so much, I have to do something. And if I don't do anything, then that is like I have 10 consciences that's constantly pounding on my head. Like, what are you doing? So it was always been that sense of urgency for me to be out here, to be that voice of change. I have told Paul the story of me in Danville, Virginia, the last standing capital of the Confederacy. My mother and father moved us from Danville, Virginia, 5 minutes past the city limits to Pittsylvania County, and it put me in a whole new arena where, you know, with the city schools, you had 1 or 2 white people in the classroom, and the county schools, it was only like 4 or 5 black people in the classroom, and my classmates were very upfront about where we stood, right? So from middle school into high school, graduating, I faced Confederate flags thrown in my face. I had spit on me on school buses. I had fireballs thrown at my house. You know, I was constantly having to pretty much solidify my family space in this new environment, but also try to be able to bring around people that called me the N-word, didn't know who I was, just saw the black skin. And because we were the second black family to move into our neighborhood, we were aliens to them. So I was able to I'm not going to say was able. I had to channel my energy because in the beginning, I was explosive. I was reactive. When I fought, right? And I fought physically. And every time I fought physically, I was the one that was getting suspended from school, right? And all my other classmates, they were able to stay and get their lessons. So I fell behind, got to a point where I almost didn't graduate from high school because of that. And so I had to be strategic and I had to be smart and say, how am I able to advocate for myself? And as well as like Dominique said, change the narrative. The narrative that I had to change was me, right? I had to prove to everyone that I was not the individual. I was the victim of racism, and I was a victim of a system at an early age that was trying to pretty much throw me out and cast me out and block me from opportunities. So after I graduated from high school, which I tell you was hard, I had a lot of work to do. My father, I know they love me. You know, he was like, you're not going to graduate. You got to find a way to get this done. So his motivation was like, look, you're going to have to cover your cap and gown, all of these things. You're going to have to pull yourself up. You're going to have to rise above this, which I did. I graduated. I think the most nerve-wracking day was graduation day. I'm sitting with my cap and gown, and I'm still having the feeling that my name is not going to be called, right? But my name was called. My name was called. And when my name was called, I walked across that stage, and then I went to Danville Community College, where I got connected to the African American Culture Club. And through the African American Culture Club, I was connected to the Danville NAACP, the Danville Southern Christian Leadership Conference, and that's where I cut my teeth. That's where I was able to connect with advisors and to some of the people whom I still look up to today, who kind of helped me to find a way to not only help myself, but to help the community that was so much in need. And from there, it was like a fire. It just caught on. I started traveling with these organizations across the nation, experiencing the different hardships that's been going on, and kind of getting a real picture of what this nation is really looking like. Which, if you go, I tell people, if you go to any Black community, we are all struggling the same. We just have a different way of interpreting what it is that we're struggling, right? Our language is different. However, everything else is the same. And so we got to challenge ourselves. I have to challenge myself. How are we able to pull these communities together to see that, so that we can unify on a united front? So it's, Texas isn't alone. DC is not alone. California is not alone. We can be able to galvanize our power and bring about the real change that we really want to see, and keep it moving for the next generation. Because, like I said, we're just helping at this point to keep the momentum going with that torch that has been held by Dr. King, that's been held by Bernard Lafayette. And well, now we're going to have to make sure that we keep it for the next generation that's coming up. Because as we have seen, everything that we work so hard for, everything that our ancestors have worked hard for, the powers that be have worked hard to overturn. And so we have to make sure that while we are doing the work, we are building the next leaders up to do the same thing, and to make sure we're championing them, so that we don't have any more young men to struggle like I did. I was horribly felt by the education system, and I had to be able to, make something of that, make something of myself. And I know that there are still children that are in the same position right now. My job right now is to make sure that they understand you will be able to make it. Your name will be called. You will walk across this stage. And not only will you walk across this stage, you will walk into a destiny where there are going to be so many people behind you that you're going to lift up as well. So we need you to make sure that you're aligning yourself with organizations and aligning yourself with allies that's going to help you to do just that.
Right. We're with you still.
All right.
Awesome.
So, and we're having all kinds of technical difficulties today. We're trying to still continue the flow of the show. What I will say is that that what I really want to also know and understand is, as our internet continues to have issues here, we're going to get through this. We're going to get through this whether the internet wants to or not. Is, you guys walked us through some of the cases. You walked us through why you guys are doing it. And one thing I heard is that, you had to work on yourself first to be able to do this kind of work for others, which I think that's with anything. But one of the things that bothers me is that we are around here fighting day in and day out against systemic racism, but yet as a people, we still continue to fight each other and the violence and the death. Now, one doesn't have anything to do with the other. That don't mean we should stop fighting for one and not the other. But how do y'all feel about all of the black on black crime? I mean, it's an early part of the summer, and there's been so many shootings and killings in our various cities. What's your takes on that? How do we get that to stop?
Well, I will say we have to be careful. I do not use black on black crime. I know that we have issues within our community, but if I was to go to a white community that's predominantly white, then it's going to be white on white crime, right? We have challenges, and those challenges have been brought upon our community due to the lack of resources, right? And it's like everyone is trying to fight their way to the top and not work with each other. We have mental illness that is in our community that is unaddressed. We have, it's just so many broken cracks within our community that, we haven't had a chance to pause and deal with. We're always on the go trying to fight the systematic oppression and racism. A lot of times we don't get to go back home and deal with those things that's on the back burner. And we're not getting the proper resources for us to be able to do that. I think what it is going to take is for us to do just that. We're going to have to go and just check the temperature of our community and start to build the unity again within our community. We have to stop living as individuals within the communities and live as one. And I know in a lot of spaces, that's what we're doing. We're living as individuals. I've gone to different areas, and neighbors don't know their neighbors, or neighbors don't want neighbors in their business. I grew up in Southern Virginia. We knew everybody that was on the block. If somebody pulled up in your driveway, your neighbors was able to tell you the make, the model, and the color of the car, right? And that's how we were able to keep ourselves safe. And that's what we need to do in today's time. So we have to embrace each other. We have to understand that we're all struggling, that we all have the same challenges, and that we are not each other's enemies, right? That we are facing the same oppressor that we have, that our ancestors and everyone else has been facing. And so we've got to be able to channel that, and we got to start taking care of one another again. My mother and father used to talk about back in the day when someone was struggling with the rent, they came together and had rent parties, right? Nobody went without. If I would have food in my house, you didn't have food, they all came together. They had potlucks, and they took care of each other. And that's what it's going to take. We're going to have to become a village again, and then we also have to continue to fight that negative stigma that there's black on black crime, because that's what the media is putting out there. They always have the cameras in our faces talking about the conditions that we're living in, but they're not going to talk about what their role was in creating the conditions that we are living in. So we've got to constantly point that out on the forefront and say, you know what? We are dealing and living in an environment that was not created by us. We had some very strong communities, Tulsa, Oklahoma, which we have seen in the forefront today, where they are digging up mass graves of bodies of individuals that was killed in a riot. Buildings were burnt down, practices was burnt down. And Tulsa, Oklahoma happened, in Baltimore, it happened in Washington, D.C., it happened in across the nation. And so now we are dealing with trying to rebuild with all this extra residue that's around us. So we got to be able to figure out how we're going to be able to move this thing collectively, and continue to show this nation that we are much stronger than we have been together. We do have our flaws. We are dealing with our flaws, but we don't want people to go out and continue to say, well, what about black on black crime? I know the police shot this individual down, but what about black on black crime? We can't let people deflect anymore. We've got to be able to say, yes, we are dealing with that, but let's talk about the real issues of what's created this situation. We didn't just get here. It's been years in the making, and we are just trying to get ourselves out of it.
Let me tell you this. I definitely agree with everything that Marcus just said. The reality is that it's just like last year when we talked about defunding the police and a number of different things. The reality is that most people argument was, oh, we're going to have less officers on our streets. We're going to have this. Well, in most American cities throughout this country, an officer's salary, pension, and all those things are yet protected in what we call a union contract, meet and confer, right? So at the end of the day, you can't touch that. But the reality is what we're talking about is that if you in Dallas have 3,000 officers, do you need 9,000 cars, right? If you have 3,000 officers, do you actually need to order 100,000 boots when audit for the last year only says that you use only 30,000 boots? One of our sisters said years ago, Ava DuVernay, she told you about the prison industrial complex. What we need to focus on is the police industrial complex, right? And the reality is that when the bureaucracy is created and when funding and contracts are granted to the people who make our officers' uniforms, make their pens, make their tasers, make their bullets, make their boots and etc. Those people are not donating back at Green Tech high school, right? They're not donating at Sappho Cliff High School. They're not donating to that local HOA or that local neighborhood association. What are they donating to? They're donating to that police union and that Top Cop annual gala and all of those different things. And what is these police unions doing? Inadvertently, they are literally fighting, using that resources to fight organizations such as NGAN and other organizations with our tax-paying dollars. They are just reversing it and fighting us. And that's the reason why I tell people all the time, do not say that you don't support defunding the police, because it's much deeper. You just got to open your mind up. You don't want to defund the police, but they've been defunding education for the last 100 years, right? They've been defunding our rec centers. They've been defunding our libraries. They've been defunding our wraparound services. They've been defunding our senior services. But why in the hell can we not defund the police, but you can defund which I think is the front line of our community? Our educators are the front line of our community, not our police officers. They're not the front line of our community. Our teachers are the front line.
Absolutely. If you don't mind, I see Dr. Sylvia Lloyd asked a question. Could you mind if I address her question? She says that there's a level of apathy. There's a level of apathy in the Black community as leaders. How do we influence others to act and get involved to impact change? And Dr. Lloyd, what I'll say is this: we have to take them by the hand and lead them to their place to find their voice. A lot of people that are standing on the sideline want to be a leader and don't know how to be a leader. And the mark that we're missing is we're not showing them how to be, and we're not encouraging them. We're not pushing them. Then we're not motivating them. We come in with a cape sometimes, and we want to be the individual that saves the situation. When we have so many young people that are out there that have tools that can help us and benefit the work that we're doing and expedite the work that we're trying to do. And so we have to show them and help them to realize the power that they have within themselves and the voice that they have within themselves. And then we connect them with the resources that we all have access to make sure that they are going to be supported in the work that they're doing. And we have to do this time and time and time and time again. We have to stop overlooking individuals whom we feel like don't want to do anything, because everybody want to do something, but individuals have their own timing when they come into their own. I have seen the spark in the eyes of so many people whom I would have just given up on, but I had to find out what it is that was their glitch. What is it that got them moving? And then what is it that I can do in order to help propel them forward and to activating what that thing is. And once they identified with that thing, there was absolutely nothing that I could do to stop them. And that's what we have to do. We have to make sure that we are giving ourselves up not only as the voice, but also as that counselor, as where we have to be that motivator. We have to sometimes go in and we be that task manager to make sure that we're following up with them. And that's what it takes to be a leader. That's how. And once people see that you care, once they see that you're not going anywhere, once they see that you are actually going to see this thing through and that they can depend on you, because there's been so many people that's come before them who has dropped the ball. But once they see that you are there, then they will get it and they will be right there along with you.
I think that's deep. I think Sylvia got another question. You want to take this one?
Sure. Dr. Lloyd says some of us are still colonized mentally and psychologically and are content with Eurocentric policing. We need to come together as a community to form a unified, solution-oriented agenda.
I like that.
What do you think about that, Dominique?
That was huge.
Hey,
those are big words too, Dr. Lloyd. That's why you got that doctorate, girl.
I need Dr. Lloyd. I need Dr. Lloyd phone number because that right there. I think the reality is that a lot of times when people say we have to abolish the police, yeah, of course we have to abolish the police as we know it, right? The reality that we live in America where yet a person cannot get a speeding ticket successfully without being killed, right? We have to change that because the level of aggression given to a person that goes 15 miles over the speed limit just baffles me. You know what I'm saying? It really baffles me, right? Because the reality is that the only thing that literally killed me was because I was speeding. We have to change that, and we have to have a critical conversation on how we're policed. And these are conversations that are had in communities of white communities in America. They don't. The police department don't tell them how they want to be policed. They tell the police department how they want to be policed. And when it comes to black communities, we can't do the same. You know what I mean? It's like I remember when they wanted to put the state troopers in the southern part of Dallas, and I was like, no, you don't put the state troopers in there. Put them over there where them people love them. In them affluent communities. And soon as we start asking for them to be in them affluent communities, you saw all of the HOA presidents and everybody say, oh, no, don't let them come here. Oh, but you want them to come in our neighborhoods, right? But they can't come in your neighborhood. That's the reality is that people feel like, oh, we're asking something that is not reality. No, it happens there. It's just in our communities. And then many people say, oh, more policing. More police officers. We need more police officers. Well, let's do this, man. Dallas has 1.7 million people. Chicago has 2.7 million. Dallas has 3,000 officers. Chicago has 13,000 officers. If they can't do it with 13,000, what makes you think that more police officers is the solution in America? That's not it. They literally have 4,000 more officers than Los Angeles. The reality is not police officers. The answer is resources. You want to talk about community violence in Chicago, but you don't talk about how many schools Rahm Emanuel closed during his tenure. That matters. Because once that condition of that mindset of that person, and once you create that monster of Lil Ray Ray, don't try to get us to help Lil Ray Ray, because now Lil Ray Ray is literally 20. You have failed Lil Ray Ray all of his life, and yet at the end of the day, once you create that monster in Lil Ray Ray, it's not our problem. But at the end of the day, if you're not going to give us the tools to be able to really change the life of Lil Ray Ray, then leave us alone with all that.
You know, we're kind of running on time here, and we're coming towards the end here. Marcus, you got one more thing before we
I'm going to keep it short. I'm going to keep it short because when it comes to the policing,
you don't know how to keep it short.
I'm going to keep it short. Yeah, we've got to go back to the origins of the police department and what they were designed to do. Go and research the night watchers and what their role was back when there was slavery. They were deputized farmers who checked the paperwork to make sure that the slaves that were leaving their plantation had permission. And if they did not have permission, then they were placed on the paddy wagons, taken back to their slave owners, and they were beaten or they were killed or what have you. They were created to protect white property and the white establishment. And so when we're looking at that, and you try to align what Dominique just said, it makes sense as to why police are always have a heavy presence in the Black community. They're still doing the same thing. They're still checking your license and your ID. They're still asking you, where were you at the time of X, Y, and Z? They're still asking you, when we go into white communities, what is the nature of your business? Are you here to score drugs? They have not changed. The only thing that has changed with the police department today is they have included Black faces in those uniforms. The training has not changed. The training has not changed. And until we do start closing out our police departments and start putting friendly officers back in the police department and start making sure that we are not using them improperly. When you go and start looking in your community, we don't want to talk about the crime rate, okay? Well, we want you to start breaking it down to what is the reported crime rate versus what was the crime that actually turned into something that where an individual was charged. You'll see that people are calling 911s at a high rate. But most of the time when somebody pick up that phone and call 911, there is no crime that's actually committed, right? And so that number still goes in. So you're still going to see a high crime, percentage in that community. But it's nothing. None of those charges, a lot of those charges amounted to nothing. And so the police are going to use that data, that trumped up data, in order for them to be able to get more funding. Because if I can say that we've had over 1,000% of calls coming in of crime, right? Then I can go and I can say, so I'm going to need 500 more police officers. I'm going to need high-tech rifles. We're going to need tanks. Right, we have to make sure that we're holding them accountable to the data that they're creating, so that they won't be able to fester in the problems. And then we also have to go and look at Bill Clinton and the COPS program and everything that was created in order for them, for not Ronald Reagan and all these other presidents, for them to tighten up on this war on violence, war on crime, war on drugs. It's deep. And so when we're doing the work, it's like we got to unpack these things, and we got to make sure that we are handling it due diligently, and we're holding them accountable and says, okay, not only do I know about the DC police, but I know about the night watchers as well, and you guys, you're pretty much the same.
Right. So definitely, y'all both have made some very good points. I believe giving some good understanding today. And I want to thank both of you brothers for coming on and giving your perspectives. And, it was good being here with you guys, seeing you guys. And, I can't wait till we're all together in person again soon. I want to, with the closing thoughts, I want.
We're gonna move to the side so you can close all on your own.
Oh, she's going to give me time to close on my own. Who is this woman? I did. She said I cut her off of her intro. You know what? I didn't cut her off in the intro. The internet cut her off on the intro. So I'm gonna take a little bit and then I'm gonna throw it back to her, just because we're gonna end on a good note. But we want really people to think about that. The change starts with us. So the change starts within first. Making the changes needed, necessary, working towards growth and development and improvement as a person, and then working to help other people who are in your circles, and then extend it outside your circles. But one of the most important changes that we need to look at is local voting. So most of the changes that happen on a local level first. Everybody is always so involved on a national level and who's going to be the president of the United States. And that's great. And we need a good president. But most of our people don't understand how powerful that local election is and how powerful those local office seats are, because those are the people we need to elect and get into office, and to start making some of the changes that we need to see, to get some of the policies changed, to start getting some of the right people in different aspects of policing and other areas to change the way funding is allocated and to do things differently. We got to start being the changes that we want to see. We got to start fighting and start advocating for ourselves. These brothers here took it upon themselves. They could have been just like anybody else, going about their business, minding their business. But these brothers are on the front lines. They're advocating. They're getting arrested. They spend their night in people's jails. They, without a spend a night bag, they are doing what they got to do to try to help people. And you know what? How do you do it? It's about not waiting for somebody else to do it. So it's about getting involved and making sure that people hear your voice. And she didn't know I was going to do it, but I'm going to turn it over to her because she said I took her closing time. So she ain't going to say I took her closing time, put her on the spot.
That's so awful. As my lighting fades away. Listen, I'm in education. If I've learned nothing else, I've learned that you use your skill set, your capacity to change the game. So to educators in the world, we have power that we don't even know. We need to educate our students. We need to educate our future teachers when they go through teacher preparation programs. We need to start talking about what our civic responsibility is. We need to talk about how do we obtain power to help be an influence and a change agent in our community. If we empower our children, these children grow up to become adults. And with that, you can impact huge change. So my advice to everyone, let's talk about what we can do, what power we do have, because nobody's going to give it to us, but we must stand up and take possession of what's rightfully ours.
And with that being said, that closes season, not the season, but episode 7. We got a final episode next week. I believe it's going to talk about mental health and specifically looking at Black men who need to heal and need to work through whatever issues that we have so we can be better for other people, for our families and for our friends, for our workplaces, and so our communities. So we're going to work and discuss about some healing. Please tune in next weekend from at 7:30 Eastern time. And let's keep it going, people. We want you to like. We want you to subscribe. We want you to share. And we want to thank these brothers for coming on out. I want to thank our co-host here for putting up with me today. And, we're going to keep this thing going. And we want to thank everybody who is spending their time.
Dr. Lloyd and everybody
else who's watching.
Support. Yeah, we love you.
Peace, love, and soul.
Peace.